This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I have another great guest on the program today, someone that I recently met and is just an absolute superstar, Jessika Calder. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Ronnie. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, when I met you, I thought you would be the ideal person to join us on the program. We've been having this series on Generation Z. And for our listeners, I always like to mention what the generations are, but we have this silent generation from the 1928 to 1945 period, baby boomers from 1946 to the 1964 period, Generation X from 1965 to 1980, the millennials from 1981 to 1996, and then Generation Z that was born from 97 to 2012. I find that fascinating because that Generation Z group is now coming into their own. They're in leadership positions. Some are still on the younger side of graduating from college or in college, and you fit right in that realm. But what was amazing, we met at an investor event, a program called Wealth Tech. And you were credible. So we had a great conversation, and you were telling me about where you are in your career and your life. You went to one university in Texas and then moved to another. Why did you make that move? This is how our conversation started.
Yes, so I started at the University of North Texas, and I'll dog on myself a little bit here. I applied because I decided to graduate early from high school. So I graduated high school in 3 years. So I graduated at 17, and I was like, I'm going to go into the military. I'm going to be in the Coast Guard. I want to go serve in Alaska. And then through Scouts BSA, which is formerly known as Boy Scouts of America, I attended an event in Tarleton, and it was an entrepreneurship merit badge class, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I was like, okay, no more military. We are going to go to college. And then, of course, I'm scrambling at the last minute. I'm like, what college is big enough, that's close enough to home, because I want to stay close to my family, that 4 years, has Greek life, like a big enough social scene where I'd feel comfortable, that's still accepting. Sure. And UNT ended up being the first one on that list. And I mean, I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. I learned so much. I joined a sorority. I held leadership positions in that sorority. I got to meet so many amazing people. But as I started coming into my own and realizing, okay, this is a career I want to do, these are the people that I'm naturally attracted to and want to spend my time around, I found that UNT was not the right environment for me. So I was between TCU and SMU, both amazing schools, both, rivals, but
They're both private schools as well. You picked the most expensive school you could go to, right?
Yes, I knew that with Fort Worth growing so quickly in the wealth advisory and wealth tech space, I wanted to stay in the DFW Metroplex. And looking at it, I was like, okay, TCU seems like the place where I could fit in the most socially, that has a very engaged alumni network, amazing professors that have been in the real world that then moved into academia, and the most well-resourced.
Right.
So
now, tell me this though. Why did you graduate early? What inspired you to finish in high school in 3 years in high school?
So I actually had a teacher, Miss McConnell, and she was great. She was my law teacher. Okay. I took her for all 3 years, and she had kind of seen me go through, and I was really struggling socially to connect with my peers. I was in lacrosse. I was in FFA. I got my Eagle Scout. I was doing a lot, but I still felt so disconnected from everyone. Like I didn't have real friends. I didn't have that network. I didn't have those girls that I wanted. And she said, hey, you're smart. Have you ever considered graduating early? And I said, no, I had no idea that was an option. So I was already about 4 credits ahead. So then my junior, senior year, I just took 10 credits, and I was like, it's done. I'm out.
Well, that's interesting, though, there are a couple of things. One, you're a COVID kid.
Yes.
And so I understand what that looked like for so many young people. You just had this really odd social break in your journey, and many missed out on those activities that bring you together, from prom and football games even. So it sounds like you were one of those that just had an impact, and you needed to have a revitalization of sorts. Right.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, so I was raised in Montessori school, which for the people that don't know is it's all self-motivated and self-guided learning. So you stay with your peers, but then you're allowed to accelerate with what your natural path to excellence is. So if you're really good at math, you can be doing grade 6, grade 7 math in 3rd grade, but then still be in 3rd grade English. So I think that I realized over COVID, oh my goodness, why am I sitting in these classes time and time again? Where like, this is so boring to me. There's so many other things, so many other people I want to meet, and getting into the professional space. So COVID was my 8th grade year.
Okay.
So that was the tail end of middle school. Going into high school, I was like, okay, I've just met so many cool people over COVID because, virtual meetings became so popular. And I was like, yeah, this is not it. It's just the values became even more misaligned after COVID.
Right. So you spent 3 years in a law program? Is that?
Yes. Yeah. So we have a public safety kind of course. It's I don't know what you call it, like an alignment in high school. And I took it the first year because the teacher was really cool and we went and toured, and then it was a different teacher actually that I came in, and she was so cool. She was a crime scene investigator in Vegas. She was a detective. So she had all these amazing stories, and she had natural leadership, and she was able to corral a whole classroom of freshmen to pay attention and listen, and then also teach through COVID. But I went to school in person that freshman year of high school when it was an option.
Sure.
And so we were able to just get close right off the bat, and she became a great mentor.
Why did you decide to go in person?
I knew that socially I'm a very face-to-face person. Of course, you saw me at the Wealth Tech event. Yeah. I love talking with people. I have no fear of rejection. I think it's the best way to connect is face-to-face and by actually speaking. And I knew that was also the way that I learned best. So after doing a few courses online, especially in middle school, I was like, this is not for me. I cannot learn this way. And the way I approach school is not just memorizing to then regurgitate it on a test. I want to actually encode the information, especially in university where you're in these interesting classes. So you
wanted to graduate early, 3 years, and then you were interested in going to the military. You said Coast Guard.
Yes.
Why the military?
I think I was so lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and the military provided great structure.
Right.
And our teacher had someone from every branch, recruiters from every branch, come in and talk about their branch and the opportunities there and where you could get stationed. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'll just join the military. It's only, 5 years? Okay, light work, I'll get this experience, I'll pay for college, and I'll be good. Hopefully I'll know what I want to do by then. So it was really, I was craving that structure because I didn't know what I wanted. At
what age did you decide that would be your path potential? Like, how early did you decide that the military is an option for you?
I think 16, because she had people coming in every year that I was in that class. So it was sophomore year of high school, and I was like, okay, Coast Guard. They seem the coolest. They are stateside. I want to go be stationed in Alaska. Like, this sounds sick. Like, I'm going to go do Coast Guard. So I think it was, at 16.
Now, what was your parents' response? Did they have a general opinion about it?
My parents have always been very supportive. And my mom was like, that makes sense. If you don't know what you want to do, then, go to the military. She's like, there's no point in paying for school and going to get a degree and kind of walking in blindly and then trying to figure out what you want.
Right.
Because you are paying to be there.
Right.
And she was like, if you don't know, then go for the military.
Right.
That's great. And she thought Coast Guard was cool, and that I wanted to be stationed in Alaska made sense. So.
Yeah, so I grew up in a military community in Virginia, and so I have this great appreciation for our military and our service members. I admire it so much. So I'm intrigued by that journey and that evaluation. What's neat is that you figured that out relatively early at 16 as a sophomore. I think some people wait until the month before graduation to try to figure out what's next. And you had a game plan. How did you get that kind of focus as a young person?
I think it came from partially genetics. I think my mom, she's very ambitious, very driven, very much a planner.
Okay.
But then also the way I was raised through school. So Montessori school, we do believe, played a really big part in setting your plan, following your plan, because you're setting your own plan from first grade. You're setting your own learning plan. You're making all these choices for yourself, and you realize, okay, no one's going to do this for you. You're doing this for yourself. And with those formative years, I think that's really why I was like, okay, plan, because also made me feel more secure in what I was doing and knowing that I was working towards a purpose and an end goal.
You know, our Gen Z series is just critical for me because there are a lot of companies trying to figure out how do you manage large teams across the country for some of these larger companies with several generations of people with a different world perspective, different experiences, and how do you create a culture and environment that makes sense? And then now as we're seeing Generation Z come in, they're building their own style of management. So Generation Z, you all have grown up with smartphones and the internet and a lot of technology that some of the prior generations just didn't grow up with at a young age. And so I find your journey really fascinating just from that perspective. Now you're at college, you're looking to become an entrepreneur. You've made a complete shift in what your focus is. Tell me what you want to do ultimately.
Ultimately, whenever I meet professionals, I tell them I'm keeping my options open because I did just turn 19. So I am very aware that I don't know everything in the world. I don't know all the opportunities and I haven't been exposed to everything.
Right.
So I don't want to nail myself down too quickly. But currently my interests lie in VC and CVC, so venture capital.
How did you figure that out? Was there a specific class that you took early enough or a person that you met? Because so not only that, and I think what you're understating is you're involved in a lot, it seems, from just our interaction. I'm impressed. But tell me, how'd you reach that focus?
I think it was kind of just exploring all the opportunities within finance, because when you say a finance degree, that's so broad.
It is.
It can be IB, it can be PE, it can be accounting. I know a lot of people and they are accounting and finance double majors and they want to be accountants. They're going to get their CPA. So I think I wanted to truly explore all the opportunities that my degree would give me. I'm like, okay, I'm paying for this degree. Where's it going to take me?
Right.
And I think VC really just took my interest because I've always been so business minded, but then also interested in the analytics of startup companies and seeing, okay, where did you invest your money in the beginning? Was this the right place to invest your money in the beginning? What are you doing with it? What does your cash flow look like? Who's your target audience? I think all of it, I was just enamored. I was like, this sounds so cool. And I mean, it uses both my degrees as well with entrepreneurship and finance.
Now, so I'll ask you this question. I'll tell you a story before you answer, but I didn't know if there was a professor or a family member or someone that you met as part of this journey this short journey that you've had that kind of inspired you. In my first year, of college, I met a professor, assistant dean, Dr. Bob Bates, an incredible person who was useful in my entire career, early in my career especially. But we become really good friends right before my first year of college. And in my first semester, he came to me, Ronnie, and he said, college is more than just going to class and getting good grades. You know, he'd always check on my grades. I meet with him every few weeks. He says, college is more than going to class and getting good grades. So it's about this experience that you have in the 4 years that you're here. You get a chance to test ideas and concepts and explore and be creative and innovative. And then I was walking across campus after he mentioned this, and I saw a sign that read, if you're interested in becoming involved in the university, come to this meeting. And I thought, this is what Dr. Bates was talking about. And I went to the meeting, and it was about becoming involved in student leadership, which I ultimately did. But was there a Dr. Bates in your life so far that's giving you that understanding of entrepreneur and investment because you're very versed in it? Did it just come from a class? How did you reach that point?
Honestly, I mean, being so early in college, it hasn't come from a class. I don't have a professor. I've had some amazing professors that have encouraged me to go above and beyond. Like Mr. Dixon, he's my econ professor. And he's like, you're just naturally good at this. And I was like, okay, well, I need to understand economics to understand new businesses. But I do have to say, Miss Pam Citron, she's quite phenomenal. She's the president of the Founders Arena. Okay. I mean, she's amazing. Just hearing her speak and with all her experiences and how she's working with these other individuals and companies is really inspiring. But then also, we spoke about him before, Paul Williams. He's the chairman and CEO of Bison Equities out in Dallas. And I got connected to him through one of my mom's old friends when she first moved to the United States. And I just get to hear about all these amazing business ventures he's doing and these new companies he's looking at. And I'm like, okay, Paul, I want to do what you do. Like, this sounds so cool. So I think it's just a natural infatuation with it. I'm just so intrigued by it.
So how do you approach these people? And then what do you say to them? You've got this young person coming up to this seasoned adult, and you making a pitch on you, right? You are your business right now.
I definitely am my own business right now. I think something that I'm aware of and I recognize and kind of do use to my advantage is, I was 18 when we first met. And so you have this 18-year-old in a suit coming up to you and just talking with you and asking you about business. And I mean, successful people are naturally inclined to want to help you, especially when you're genuinely interested, which I am. And then whenever I'd have a meeting with one person, I would always end it and thank them and say, is there anyone else you think that I should connect with or reach out to that I could say that I've met through you? And generally I do get another name or two. So then it's kind of a whole little grapevine and it all goes off. And that's how I end up meeting more people. And then I have no fear of rejection. So my mom's a psychologist. She's a business psych. So we were able to talk about this and she was like, Jess, the worst thing they can say is no.
Right.
And then that was the whole mindset at the Wealth Tech event as well. I'm like, the worst thing they can do is walk away.
Right.
So, and even then, that's not that bad because there are so many other people there and you just go talk to another person. So I think it's that, well, why wouldn't they want to talk to me? I'll go talk to them. I think they're interesting. I'm going to go learn about them. So I think it's just that natural, I guess, inclination. But also I have no fear of cold calling or cold emailing. I think that's also the best way to reach out to people.
A lot of people struggle with that. The cold calling and reaching out, they have a lot of fear of rejection for a lot of people, even people that are starting businesses. And I have these conversations with entrepreneurs that are trying to seek funds, and they feel very rejected if someone says, no, we don't believe in investing in your idea. They feel offended. But it sounds like you've already crossed that barrier or that challenge, that you're ready to move on to the next one if you get a no, or you're actually ready to lean in to the same person if you get a no, right? And try to convince them that it should be a yes. But walk me through what that feels like. What I've learned with you in just our little time, you're tough, but in a positive way. You're driven. And then you've got this level of preparation that I think a lot of younger people may or may not have, which is why I love this Generation Z series. I'm looking at my producer here because so many people think, all right, this generation, they don't know quite, they don't have that purpose, they don't have the drive, and you do. I'm finding that generation has a lot of drive and a lot of creativity and a lot of innovation. When I speak about preparedness, though, you have your own business card with your QR code. You're ready. Like you have a great LinkedIn profile that's very well organized. How did you get to that point of such preparedness?
Yeah, so my mom has been in the industry for a while, and she's a business psychologist, and she's been really pivotal in helping me go into this. She was the one saying, Jessica, you need to make this LinkedIn. Jessica, let me read over, you write it. Yes. But let me double check it, and we'll read over it, and we'll see what your intention is behind the piece and if we need to adjust it. So she's been a great motivator in it as well. But then she also tells me prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Right.
So I have my Eagle Scout and she's my assistant scoutmaster. And so we would always prepare for the worst and hope for the best. You prepare for the storm and then you hope it doesn't come. Right. But if it does, you're fully prepared for it and you're not going to freak out and be like, oh, I should have done that earlier. Sure. Because if I went to the Wealth Tech without business cards, I would not have met half the people that I met. I would not have been able to connect with them. And I would have been kicking myself for not having business cards with me because I feel like it's such a simple thing to do.
It is.
An easy thing to pull together, especially with all the online resources now like Canva and all these Adobe Illustrator and everything. It's so easy to do that it's like, okay, it's 5 minutes out of my time. I'm going to just order it to Office Depot. I'll be great. This is fine. This is out of the way. And then just carry it with me.
So that's intriguing. I did delve into something that is so simple, but you ask a lot of people, even adults that have been around for a while, they don't know Adobe Illustrator. They don't know what Canva is. How did you become familiar with those tools? How do you use it? And then how did you build out something like your business card? So it sounds like you took it down to the office supply store, had it printed out. But walk me through that process, because I think this is important for other young people that might be in high school now. In fact, our program, I'm told, is being assigned to high school students. So yours might become one of the favorites in helping them understand what it looks like to get to your point. Yeah,
I definitely think it's just being curious and looking for the solution. So I know that I wanted really pretty slide decks when I was in high school. I was like, I want these cute slide decks. I want these fun fonts. And that's how I originally got comfortable using Canva, which is such a user-friendly platform. And I was like, okay, perfect. It's a graphic design platform.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I can make my LinkedIn header with this. Oh, I can make my business card with this. And it's kind of a never-ending possibility. I use it in social media management now, which that's a whole spicy topic on its own of like if that's okay or not. But I think it started with slide decks. Right. And I think Canva is honestly the best platform. I would not encourage anyone to jump right into any of the Adobe platforms because they are quite tedious to learn how to use properly. But Canva it's a well-known resource now, especially in high schools.
I'm amazed at how many entrepreneurs show up at events with no business cards.
Me too. So
they go to an investor event like you were attending and they have no business cards. Now, so a question about that, and then I do want to talk about social media. So you have a printed card. So many people have transitioned to online only or electronic. So they'll tap phones to exchange their contact information, or they'll only use a QR code from their phone. Why'd you decide to print cards?
I think, and Pam mentioned this as well when she was looking at my business card because she saw the back was blank. And she was like, oh, I love that the back is blank. And I said, me too, because you can write on it. Yeah. So I think it's a more personal way. And I have a collection of the business cards that I've gotten from people. And I need a visual reminder of everything. And so it's so easy to have out on my desk and see my little folder of business cards that I have. It's like, oh, I need to reach out to these people again. I need to follow up, see how they're doing. And then with them meeting me for the first time, if I'm, say, recommending a restaurant in Dallas because they're visiting, or if I'm recommending they go look at this new startup, this apparel store, or this individual, I can write a note on the back. And then there you go. They have the information. It's not going to get lost in their phone. And they have the information of me, who's the person that gave them the recommendation. So I think I just like the personal and physical touch of it. I do have an online business card as well, but if I can, I prefer paper.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree with you. So I hadn't mentioned this to any of my viewers. I probably shouldn't say, but I've been saying that for quite a while about business cards. I don't like business cards that have a lot of graphics on the reverse side because, like you're saying, I'm taking notes about the person, because when you leave the event, and let's say you collect a number of business cards, you might not remember some of those details, and you don't have time to write it in your phone or in the notes section. And so I'm writing it on the card. I put it in my pocket, and then I can refer to it when I go back. So Pam is absolutely right. Having it blank is so important from my vantage point.
No, I totally agree. I think I have a thing with, faces. And my mom said it's a skill to be able to remember people and remembering the little tidbits of information that they share with me. But I totally agree that it makes it a lot easier to write on their business card because they generally have, a photo attached or what their position is. Like I got to meet the lead head of the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. So I'm like, okay, perfect. It's Arlington Chamber of Commerce. I remember who he is. Okay, great. But then if it's a more blank business card, especially mine where it says student, I want these people to be able to take notes that I meet and be like, okay, no, she was really cool. I liked her.
That's impressive. So very smart as a concept. So tell me about the social media. You mentioned social media moment. I had it on my list anyway. Okay. You mentioned use Canva to help build out social media, but how do you build your profile today, and how do you get noticed? Personal
profile or
either
professional?
One. Yeah.
So I had to.
So here's one thing I will say about the difference between the two, and I speak to a lot of young people about this. Sometimes the difference between your professional and your personal doesn't exist, because a lot of organizations will look to understand you as a person, and that personal social media can impact your professional side. So, but yeah, talk to us about. I totally
agree. I was going to highlight that as well. It's a big thing. I think that really came from joining a sorority. You're told during recruitment, they look at every aspect of your life, and they do. They scour your Instagram, they scour your TikTok, everything out there is public. And I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind before you click to post. I would always think, would I want my grandma to see this? And if the answer was no, then I wouldn't want an employer to see it either, so I'm not going to post it, no matter how cute the photo is. I think it's great. I was listening to another podcast, and it was talking about how social media fosters, in their words, a false sense of a relationship between two people. But when it comes to something like LinkedIn, that is a professional platform where you want to stay connected with these people and you want to see what they're doing, I think that becomes a real benefit, because it is that false sense of a real relationship, but they have it as well. And so at the end of the day, it does become real because, I know that they would feel comfortable reaching out to me and asking me for assistance on anything. And I'd be comfortable reaching out to them because I've been seeing what they've been doing.
Right.
And then I had 2 internships this summer. So I had a full-time internship where I was operations and marketing. I mostly assisted on the social media marketing aspect of it. My main job was developing, launching, and managing the e-commerce side of the apparel, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
And then I have another internship at the startup AI company out of California. So I do manage all of our customer-facing resources. So like we did our brand development, our pitch decks, our website, the logo, and then managing the LinkedIn and Instagram as well, which in itself is a whole nother challenge. People think it's so easy, and I initially thought that that's what I wanted to do going into college. I said, I want to get an entrepreneurship and a marketing degree.
Okay.
And you can do it, but I just don't think it's my natural path to excellence.
Sure.
But also I can recognize that and know that when to ask for help, which is really nice.
So you've used that term natural path to excellence several times. Is that something that they taught in the Montessori school?
No, so my mom was in commission sales. She sold this test called the SBQ Gold Assessment,
Right.
and it measured people's natural path to excellence. So I think it came from sitting in her office on the floor all the time, listening to her on these business calls. And I'd pick up call reluctance, fear of rejection. That's where I learned cold calling, and that's natural path to excellence. And she uses it a lot when talking about what me and my brother do. She's like, Jessika, this is just not your natural path to excellence. And I said, thank you, Mom, I understand that. And she was like, hey, so let's try something else. So I think that that's where a lot of that vocabulary comes is from my environment.
That's impressive. So on the social media side, which systems, tools, platforms do you find the most impactful, useful, both professional, otherwise?
I think professionally, you can never go wrong with LinkedIn.
Okay.
I think a lot of young people underestimate the power of LinkedIn, and a lot of people, especially my friends that try to connect with me or people I know, I'll go and look at their profile and it's just a profile photo and there are no posts, no about. And I'm like, okay, well, this is not telling me anything about you, especially professionally, where you want to connect with me in this aspect, this element where it's public. Everyone can see who you're connected with. So I think that LinkedIn is great for professional connections. You can never go wrong. And then on more the personal side, Instagram's a go-to. All of the posts stay there. You have the opportunity to make these really long captions, these really short captions, and it feels Instagram's becoming casual again.
Sure.
So it feels more like a personal, again, that false personal relationship that we're talking about.
So tell me about that concept, because I was going to bring that up, the false sense of a relationship. And I think some do describe social media. How do you find that right balance between feeling like you know someone and feeling like you only know someone through the computer?
I think it really boils down to self-awareness. I look at someone on my feed, and I even do it now, and I'm like, oh, I haven't spoken with this person in quite literally 2 years.
Right.
I don't even know if they still follow me. And then if you look at it and you're like, okay, I don't really align with the person that you've become. It's as easy as hitting unfollow, and they're not going to text you about it and be like, why'd you unfollow me? Because they haven't talked to you in 2 years.
Right.
So I think it's kind of that way of being self-aware, but at the same time, you don't have to be. If you want to have that false sense of all these relationships and friendships, go for it.
Right.
Honestly, it works for a lot of people. I just know that I've focused on kind of boiling down my circle and making it as tight-knit and intentional as possible.
Sure.
And so I'm like, these surface level relationships, I'm like, you feel like you know me and I'm doing cool stuff that I know you want to do, but you put no effort into this friendship.
Now that is extremely insightful. And what I like about what I've learned about you is that you have a social media presence, but you also believe in being in person. So you're going to these events. So real quick, I know we're nearing the end of our time, but when we met, you told me about going to your professors and telling them about this event. And what happened? Tell us that experience.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of an unintentional long game. I'm very involved in all my classes, especially my lit classes where all the business majors are like, oh, I don't want to be here. This is a required class. But I find them interesting. So I'm always very involved. I always try to make a personal relationship with my professor, which is especially easy with the class size at TCU. So they know who I am. They know I'm involved. They know I go to class. And so I sent them a very nice, respectful, well-worded email. And I said, hey, this is the event that I'm attending this event. I'll miss your class on this day. This is why the event is important to me. Here is a solution to it. How do I attend this event without it impacting my learning or my grade in your class? Can I attend office hours, do a supplementary assignment? What would work best for you? And then I would attach a link to the event that I was going to. And I would say thank you before they even sent it. So I was like, thank you so much. I'm going to see them next week anyway, because I'm just not going to class. I'm going to this event. But I would attach a link because that also reinforces, hey, I'm not lying.
Right.
I'm not just going on a trip. This is the really cool event that I'm going to, and they know what my degree is and they know what my goals are. And so they can see that it's all aligned.
Right. Now, what's impressive about what you just described is that you were proactive. You sent it to them in advance. You just didn't skip the class. And then you gave them kind of a solution as well. So I would prefer to go to this event because it's a great learning. It supports what we're learning in school. And then you gave them an alternative. So you would attend another session or whatever program that they assign to you, right, or other class session they assign. So you gave them an option and you let them know that you're willing to work with them. Yeah. Right, you made it a win-win. So this was very much business for you, right?
Yes,
it's a transaction.
Well, and it's easier for them to say yes if you give them a solution, because then they don't have to think of the solution themselves. Or be like, oh, do I give her an assignment? Or I don't know if she can come to office hours. They're like, yeah, supplementary assignment sounds great.
I love it. So what business decoded tips would you give someone else in Generation Z or another leader that's across all the other generations? What has Jessika learned so far in her young existence to date?
Okay, so I guess I'll have a few, but I'll speed through them quickly. We have being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Growing and learning only happens when you are uncomfortable. And if you're always, feeling the vibe, you always feel like you're the smartest in the room, like you're doing the most, you're not going to learn, you're not going to grow, and you're going to stay stagnant where you're at, which is what I would assume no entrepreneur wants to be told that they're being stagnant. And then having a yes mindset. So that's the huge thing. I was so intimidated going to that Wealth Tech event, excited, but so intimidated, especially realizing and starting to meet people there and getting all these business cards that say CEO, president, founder. I'm like, oh, y'all are like really cool. So I think it's just having that yes mindset. And it's so hard to not be afraid of that rejection. It's possible, but not probable in my experience anyway. So I think just being open to saying yes to all these opportunities, saying yes to meeting new people, and saying yes to challenges that maybe you're not the most well-versed in, but you know when to say you need help. Right.
Well, Jessika, it's been a pleasure having you. I'm excited to follow your career and your journey, so I hope that you continue to keep in touch.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Ronnie.
I'm proud of your drive, your passion, your preparedness, which I think some people miss at all levels and ages and generations. So I commend you for what you're doing and how you're going about doing it.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.